You see the Mental health issues in professional sport. It's a big talking point these days. For the first time ever, professional athletes are actively being encouraged to open up about what mental health issues they might have faced competing at the top level, rather than it being stigmatised. Is enough actually being done to combat these pressures? And can exercise itself be a form of therapy to these athletes? How important is mindset training in not only performing to the best of your ability, but to be able to survive at the top level? I spoke to Team GB Olympic bronze medalist and European and world champion Yves Muirhead. Besides competing in the sport you love, why do you take part in physical activity?
I think physical activity is really important for every human being, and from a young age I wasn't pushed into anything, which I think is really important for a lot of young people, and my parents always supported me whatever I chose to do, and through school I took part in every single sporting activity I could, and I was really competitive at it. I never ever wanted to lose. So from a young age I knew that I think that was along the lines of what I wanted to do, and even during school there was a lot of, not bullying, that's not the right word, but a lot of people who didn't agree with what you did, and it just wasn't a cool thing to do. But for me now, I'm glad I kind of carried on doing what I wanted to do, and I look back and I think that I could have made a lot of different decisions, but for me moving forward I realised that sport was something that I wanted to be involved in.
What pressures have you had to deal with as a pro athlete, and what do you do to alleviate these?
As a pro athlete there is a lot of pressures that come with it, and for me, especially the position I play within my team, being the captain, I play the shots that either win you games, win you tournaments, but I also play the shots that lose you games and lose you tournaments. So there is a lot of pressure that comes with being the skip of a curling team. As well, just generally curling, when your name's kind of out there, you always have pressures on your shoulders, and especially within Scotland, being the top team, you're always expected to do well, and that makes it tough. And if I just take you even back to last week, we were competing in the Continental Cup, which is a little bit like the Ryder Cup of curling. So it wasn't just Team Muirhead, it wasn't just Team Scotland, we were Team Europe. So there was 6 teams, and you're competing for all those 6 teams, and it came down to the very last game, and fortunately for me I played the shot that won us the Continental Cup, and I've never ever been so nervous. It was probably the most nervous I'd ever been, because you didn't want to let all those guys down. You didn't want to let down the kind of nations that were there competing, and you're there with a jam-packed stadium. There's thousands of people watching you. It's streamed live throughout the world on TV, and for me that was the biggest pressure situation apart from the Olympics I think I've been in, and it was mental. And as soon as you play that shot and you win, and you win for the countries, is something really special.
So you mentioned some of the highs there. Another high was winning a bronze medal in the 2014 Winter Games. What sort of pressure was there on you to perform just as well in the 2018 Games? Going
into Pyeongchang in 2018, there was a lot of pressure, and I think not just pressure that we put on ourselves, but pressure that everyone puts on you. And every year, not just curling, but every sport is getting better and better, and it's becoming harder and harder to be at the top of these sports. Every nation is always at your heels, and every nation is getting better in different areas. And for us, getting the medal in Sochi 2014 obviously was massive. It gave us a huge boost, and it put our names out there, not just in Britain but throughout the world as well. And then to get selected for Pyeong 2018, it came with lots of pressures, and to come away with 4th, it's probably the hardest defeat of my career so far. Like it was brutal. It was really, really hard. And if that doesn't hurt, getting fourth at the Olympic Games, like I don't know what does. But the pressure is something that you have to learn to deal with. Like it's something that for me you get every day, with different things that you do, from training to gym work to just being out there and keeping fit, because you want to get better. Everything you do, you want to PB at. You want to be the best you can, because you know the rest of your competitors are doing exactly the same. So yeah, of course it was disappointing, but I think over time you learn how to deal with pressures, and I think as an athlete that's something that you have to do, is learn how to deal with it.
There's a well-publicised story about Rebecca Wilson, another Team GB athlete, who opened up about self-harming at the 2014 Winter Games in order to cope with the pressures. Do you think this is actually more common than we think, and are mental health issues covered up in sport?
Yeah, it was interesting to read that story at the Games, and I think it most definitely is something that is a lot more common than the general public think. And from being an athlete, I can see how it's always going to be an issue, and I think it's something that people now begin to realise that there is an issue there, and there's a lot more help available. And I think being an athlete, you don't want to open up because you're embarrassed to. You feel like there's a lot of pressures on you to perform and do well, but of course when that doesn't go well, there's lots of downs as well. But I think over time people are beginning to realise that it's an area that happens a lot within professional sport, and I take my hat off to her for opening up. Like I think that was a very brave thing to do, and I think going forward it's maybe kind of opened the public's eyes that when you are there on the stage, when you are competing at high level sport, the pressures are massive, and at the end of the day, like, we are just normal human beings, and we're just trying to do the best for ourselves and do the best for our sports.
The government has issued a statement that there needs to be a clear mental health strategy in place for all professional teams by 2024. How important is this?
I think it's very important that there is help available, and I think with the government putting that statement forward, it maybe takes a little bit of pressure off each athlete's back, and I think knowing that help's available is something that's very valuable. And I know here in Scotland we're always urged to speak about it, and we're always urged to kind of open up and speak about everything that's going on as much as we can, so people are aware that maybe help is needed, or maybe just to keep an eye on certain people, or just different things like that. But I think moving forward it's definitely in a better place, and I think the biggest task is when athletes retire. You have so much pressure on your backs competing at a high level, and then suddenly you're like finished like that, and it's I can't imagine for myself what it'd be like finishing. Like every day I'm in the gym, every day I'm practicing on ice, I'm away competing, and then suddenly it stops, and I can imagine that being very tough.
You have struggled with a serious injury this season. What effect does that have on your mental health, and what have you done to come back from this?
Like, I'll be honest, I've had the worst summer ever. Like it's been awful. From coming fourth in the Olympic Games to being on the table getting serious hip surgery, it's been tough. I was literally home from the Olympics for a week, and then I was getting operated on. So it's been really tough, but I think the help that's available for me has been second to none. And I've been aware that I've spoken up about it, and I've asked for help when I've needed it. So for me as an athlete, getting the surgery was needed, but I think the help that I've received since to get me back to where I am is something that's kind of invaluable. And I think every athlete that goes through injury, you can realise how tough it is, and how tough it is to get back to the top of your game. And it's not just getting back to sport, I think it's getting back to where you finished off. Like, you want to be just as good, don't you, or if not better, but you've got to climb back up to there. So for us, like, our season has been slow at the start, we maybe haven't won as many games, as many tournaments as what we'd have wanted to, but I think you've got to look at the big picture, and for me it's looking at the next 3 years. Like, it's the next Olympic Games that I want to be fit for, but being as competitive as I am, like, I want to be good every day. So that's where it's tough, and that's where you've got to put everything into perspective, and that's where the help's there when you need it.
How important is a positive mindset and mental toughness when playing professional sport, and what role does this play in performing to the best of your ability?
Like, I think a positive mindset is really important. If you're negative, like, you're never going to get back to where you want to be. You've got to have ambition, and you've got to have drive to be back even better. And like, I've worked my socks off to get back to where I am. Like, I'm actually lucky to be back on ice competing right now. I spent a lot of time rehabbing. Like, I spend 2-3 times a day doing rehab things, and believe you me, it's no fun. Like, it is the most boring thing ever. But if I want to get back to where I want to be, you've got to do it. And you see it within a lot of sports that injury's common, but people don't realise, like, what it takes to get back to where you are. And when there's pressures on you to perform just as well or even better than where you left off, it's important that people realise that that's where tough times come from. But you've got to speak up if you need help, and that's exactly what happened.
Why should people with mental health issues look to exercise as a form of therapy?
Like, for me, when I'm away competing, or even just at home, like, I'll go and work out, and it's maybe not to get better at what I do, but it's more to switch off from every day. It's more to switch off from what's constantly going through your mind about competing or about your sport, and it's just a way of kind of relaxing and enjoying a different aspect of life. And I think that's really, really important that people understand that. And within my team, all of us have certain things that we like to do to switch off, and you've just got to respect that. And I think for general people, like, exercise is something that really does help to kind of change your mindset and give you a little bit of drive. And I actually think it's a little bit addictive as well. So I think if someone has an issue, or if something's happening within mental health, like, to get into fitness, to get into gym work, like, there could be a lot worse things. So I think that's really important that people realise that you've got to respect why people do it. There's obviously all different kind of abilities maybe taking part, but each individual is for different reasons, and you've got to respect that.
Now that you're fighting fit, what are your goals for the rest of 2019?
Well, for 2019, we're kind of midway through our season already, which is quite scary. We have our Scottish Championships coming up, which is that's really important, not just to secure our spot in the World Championships, but for our funding as well going forward. So we'll be training hard for the next few weeks leading into that, and then fingers crossed we'll have the Worlds, and then a few Grand Slam events. So really, this season's been a season of kind of finding our feet again after last year, to try and qualify ourselves for a few big events, and then moving forward, obviously the Olympics in 2022 is the next big goal.